Okay, take 4 of my Holy Priest guide. Let's have this be the last one, shall we? So, with the Holy Priest, it is the little brother of the Disciplined Priest. It's not seen quite as much, just because when you bring a Healing Priest, you definitely want to have a Disc Priest. And so only if you're bringing 2 Healing Priests do you see a Holy Priest, generally. My guild takes 2 Healing Priests, so I'm right now playing the Holy Priest for our guild runs and having a fun time at it, and able to put out some good numbers despite having a pretty good Disciplined Priest with us. And so let's jump into it. Let's talk about talents. For level 15, you are going to have a default choice of either Desperate Prayer or Angelic Bulwark, depending on how you like to play. I personally go with the passive. Some people take like Desperate Prayer, which is an active one that you just click and it gives you 22% of your maximum health back. This does give you more total HPS than Angelic Bulwark, but it's also actively managed, so it should give you a little bit more reward. Spectral Guise is used from time to time to drop fixates, and a very great spell. Body and Soul, I do not recommend this for Holy Priests, because you're not casting Power Word Shield that much, especially in a raid, because if you're there, you will have a Disciplined Priest, and they will be casting all of those and will hate you if you're casting them. So that's why I choose Angelic Feather. It's great. It has 3 charges, allows me to run really fast for basically 20 seconds if I need to. I rarely need to do that, but I can pass them out to other people. They're wonderful. Phantasm doesn't see any play. Level 45, you have 2 choices, Mindbender or Powered Solace. Mindbender is easier to manage. It's a 1-minute cooldown. It will give you a little bit less mana back, but it does do more damage than your Powered Solace. However, Powered Solace, if you manage it correctly, you will get quite a bit of your mana back, more than your Mindbender. And what I really like about it is that it's a global cooldown in which somebody is getting healed, where my Mindbender is a global cooldown in which nobody is getting healed. So that's why I like to use Solace, for that reason. Level 60, you choose whatever the encounter depends. For level 75, you have basically no choice. You use Power Infusion. You save mana, you get more haste. You can pop it when you need it to get that extra burst of haste, and it's really great. Just a Fate, some people you can't argue for it in it. And I guess you could use it in some instances, but I don't. I never have. And Divine Insight should be cooler than it is. It sounds really cool, but it doesn't. It doesn't do as well as it should, which is a shame because it's a pretty neat spell, and I wish you had more choices in your talents. Level 90, your Divine Star is terrible. Halo is a great looking spell and does do a good bit of healing. However, it has a range radius where Cascade basically doesn't, and so Cascade is set it and forget it, and it heals quite a bit, pretty much all the raid, at least once, if not more, throughout the course. And so it's basically your default choice there. Level 100, Saving Grace and Clarity of Purpose are no good, so you will always be going with Words of Mending, especially with the set bonuses that power Prayer of Mending. Let's talk about glyphs. There are 2 glyphs that you will generally always have when you are raiding, and that'll be Renew, and that'll be Lightwell, or your Deep Wells. Renew increases your Renew healing by 25%, and since Renew is your main healing, usually most of your healing is coming from Renew, you will be using, you want to boost that as much as you can. Lightwell does a great amount of emergency healing for people that are already low on health, so having 2 more charges of that is great, and I highly recommend it. The one that you will play around with is your 3rd slot, and here you kind of choose kind of how you want to play, and how well your spirit and how much mana you can support using. So for I use Glyph of Binding Heal because I like to be able to heal myself plus 2 other people for not a lot of mana. Circle of Healing a lot of people go with this, and it does will increase your HPS because you do use Circle of Healing a lot. However, it will also significantly increase the mana cost of your Circle of Healing, which you use almost always on cooldown. Not always, but fairly often on cooldown. Other choices that you have there are Purification. You might use this on fights like Beast Lord. Prayer of Mending. I don't recommend this because it gives a bigger kick initially, but it doesn't. But it does reduce your total your total healing overall. Other ones that you may see some play depending on how you're running. Guardian Spirit increases the healing from all sources on that target by an additional 200%, so that person will hopefully not die. However, it does not prevent that person's death. So I have cast this on people, and they do still die, and that's not fun. So I like to have Guardian Spirit guarantee that somebody will at least be able to survive a killing blow. However, there might be instances where you want something a little bit different. For example, Bracken Spore, I cast this on the mushrooms, and the blue mushrooms, and it kept them up and increased the DPS and the mana regen by people by another basically 10 seconds because those things couldn't die. It took them from almost nothing all the way back up really fast. So that was one instance where I did like that spell, or glyph, excuse me. Let's talk about stat priority. Quickly, your attunement stat is multi-strike. And it's also the one you want to stack. So all your enchants are going to be multi-strike. Your everything. If you're going to main spec hole, you're gonna take as much multi-strike as you can. Haste is your number 2 stat, and then mastery. Crit is not that great, and versatility is something that basically it's blah. Your 2 best stats technically are multi-strike followed by haste, but mastery is in my mind really close to haste because it's always there, and it just increases your healing, and it increases the multi-strikes as well, so it has bump there. So I would say if you can get multi-strike mastery or multi-strike haste, that's a piece that you really want. Both my weapons are multi-strike haste, which is nice. There's some nice. They did some nice things with the gear in BRF, so hopefully they continue that with Hellfire Citadel. I think we covered stats. Let's cover the tier gear. The tier gear, if you have access to 4 pieces, you want to be running 4 pieces. Your set bonuses are really nice, and they work really well with your Prayer of Mending, which is something that you're going to be casting on cooldown every single time. And so I highly recommend, if at all possible, get the 4 set bonus because it's great. It gives you serendipity a lot, and so you're able to cast out a lot more Prayer of Healings, a lot more heals at the speed of a flash heal, and it really increases your HPS and just the amount of stuff you can do. We'll get into Serenity shortly. Next, let's talk about the chakras. So, as a Holy Priest, you have 3 different chakras. You have Chastise, which is your DPS one, and I'll put DPS in quotes there. We'll say it's your one that increases the damage that you can do. Chakra Sanctuary is essentially your raid healing chakra, and for every spell you cast, it decreases the cast time on your Circle of Healing. It also gives you a spell called, what is this called? Sorry. Sorry, Sanctuary, Holy Word Sanctuary, and it puts up basically a spot on the ground where it heals, but this healing is really piddly. It's 500 to 1,000 every couple seconds. So it's got nothing on the shamans or the druids. So I very rarely use it. It's only if there's really nothing else to do, and a lot of people are stacked up. You might cast it on the melee, and it just does a little bit of healing there, but it's really not that great. You're really in that chakra for the reduced cooldown on your circle of healing. Your last chakra is Serenity, and this is more of a single target healing spell. It causes any single target healing spells you cast on the targets to refresh the duration of your renew. It also turns your gives you access to Holy Word Serenity, which is a instant cast flash heal that costs about 1/5 of that amount every 10 seconds. So it's great. So to play a Holy Priest well, if you really want to master it, besides getting your spells cast on cooldown, one of the things you're really going to want to master is Chakra Dancing. And that's, you're going to be wanting to switch between the different chakras to really maximize what you can do. It's only a 10-second cooldown between switching chakras, so there's a time where there's not a lot of raid damage, but there is some intense burst damage to single players. You get in there and you switch to Serenity, and you're popping off your big heals, getting renews going out and refreshed, and you still have access to all of your other spells, so you're not really punished for it. And then boom, it's raid wide damage. Boom, you switch back right before Tantrum, you say, and you pop out your Prayer of Healings, your Circle of Healings, your Prayer of Healings, all of that stuff, and it allows you to really get the raid damage up, and you can switch back and forth. And really, to see the best play out of a Holy Priest, you're going to want to be Chakra Dancing. I have a macro that helps me switch between Serenity and Sanctuary, and honestly, I haven't found a perfect macro that does it all the time, but sometimes I have to click it manually with my mouse. However, I do have a can sometimes with my Mac. It works probably 75% of the time, which is whatever. It's fine. So I will put that in the notes and just know that it's not perfect. Your spell priority, and it's hard to put a priority for healers, because if somebody's about to die, you don't do like a little piddly you don't do a Solace, you don't do a Prower or many, but if people aren't dying, I'm going to give you basically spells that you want to use as much as you possibly can to get the best throughput and to maximize your play and to have as much fun as you can. In this order: Prayer of Mending on cooldown every single time, followed by Circle of Healing or Power Word Solace, followed by Circle of Mending or Power Word Solace. You'll want to be using those three all the time. They have cooldowns that are about 10 seconds, and so you'll want to be using those, getting as many Prayer of Mendings out, getting as many Powered Solaces out. That'll give you your mana back, and then you want to get as many Circle of Healings out. And you use Circle of Healing when more than 3 people are taking damage. So if nobody's taking damage, you don't use Circle of Healing. It's a total waste of mana, and mana is something that you need to consider as a Holy Priest, because on longer fights you will have issues with mana if you're not playing somewhat smart. And so getting into mana conservation, let's talk about that a little bit. You have your Powered Solace, but you don't need to be spamming flash heals. If you're having to flash heal a lot, your Paladin is really not doing a good job. So you should be spamming renews as your filler spell all the time. Getting renews out on people, getting that ticking, ready for them to take damage. That should be your filler spell, your go-to. You should have 3, 4, 5, 6 renews out on targets basically at all times. You have some cool utility spells like Binding Heal, which heals you plus one other player. If it's glyphed, it heals 2 other players for basically half of a flash heal, and it doesn't cost very much. So it's a great little spell to heal yourself plus others at the same time, and really can save your life, keeps other healers from having to focus on you. I have a TellMeWhen that when I get lower than 90%, it says, hey, you can use a prayer of mending and it would be effective. I don't always do it, but it lets me know that, hey, I'm not close to full health, and so you might want to use a Binding Heal. Another thing to help conserve mana is Serenity. Serenity comes from using Binding Heal or Flash Heal, and it gives you up to 2 stacks of Serenity, which reduce the cast time and the mana cost of your Prayer of Mending or your heal by up to 40%. And so your Flash Heal and your Prayer of Healing basically are as fast. Your heal and your Prayer of Healing are the same speed as a Flash Heal, and they also reduce the mana cost. And the mana cost on heal is not very significant because it's already a really cheap spell, and you can spam this all day, every day, forever, and you never run out of mana. However, Prayer of Healing costs almost 12,000 without stacks of Serenity, and it's almost that price is almost cut in half. So it makes it a pretty viable spell when you got stacks of Serenity, which is why getting your I said Serenity, I meant Serendipity. Getting your Serendipity stacks from your 4-set bonus is really nice, because then you don't have to use Flash Heal and Binding Heal to get it. You just get them, and then you can use it, which is just fantastic. And so I went over the quote-unquote rotation priority. You want to get as many Prayer of Mendings, Circle of Healing when when more than 3 or more people are taking damage. You want to have a bunch of renews out, Powered Solace on cooldown to get your mana back, and you want to stack Spirit everywhere that you can get Spirit. As a Holy Priest, you need it. I have 2 Spirit Trinkets, I have a Spirit Ring, 2 Spirit Rings, and I have a Spirit Neck. And I have the Spirit Enchant. So you need Spirit, and you will still probably have mana issues. It's not as mana efficient as Disc, unfortunately. Hopefully, well, maybe next expansion they'll fix that. I don't see them fixing that this expansion. I don't think they care that much. And so, yeah, during raids I have almost all the time 3 to 4 minimum. I have at least 3 to 4 renews out. I'm casting Prayer of Mending on cooldown, and I am using Powered Solace and Circle of Healing as much as I can, and I'm always keeping my Light Well down. You always want to have your Light Well down on cooldown. Let's talk briefly about Divine Hymn. Divine Hymn heals everybody in your raid for quite a bit of healing. Your total HPS is balanced around Divine Hymn. This is why you'll see Disc Priests and Paladins out healing a lot of these other classes, because they're not they're not needing to use their Divine Hymn, Tranquility, Healing Tide totems, especially on farm fights. For progression, a lot of if your Disc Priest and your Holy Priest, and if they're all basically around the same gear and skilled, on progression you're going to see it very similar numbers between the sets. But once you get on farm, everybody gets more powerful, it's taking less damage, and the absorbers, your Paladins and your Disc Priests who aren't dependent on these raid-wide cooldowns are pulling away in the numbers. So don't feel bad about that. It's just how the class is designed, and Blizzard doesn't care that much about farm. They care about progression. So, but it is a great spell to use, and you can save the day with it. It's not as powerful as a Trank, but it can really save the day. So if a lot of the raid group is at 50% or 60% or lower, it's a great time to pop that, and it brings them back up to 80, 90, 100%, depending on how low they were. Where Trank basically can bring everybody back from 20 to almost 100. You're going to be looking at probably a 30 to 40% of their HP, where Trank is probably something more like 70. It's just how it is. You have more powerful single target heals, and honestly, I would not want to be a Resto Druid. I have a level 100 Resto Druid, and I don't like playing him. I like playing the Holy Priest a lot better. I think that covers everything for the Holy Priest. I'm planning on doing a how to heal, how to improve your healing, regardless of your class. A couple of videos just to help players get better, no matter what they're doing. Because there's some tips. I've been healing for a long time, and there's some tips and tricks that can help anybody. I'll link some macros, my dancing chakra macro, and I'll link my Mouseover macros and things like that. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you about them. I love talking about the priest. You can catch me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/swagstrokes. I'll put a link to that in the description. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day.